This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to A Time to Care the Caregivers podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. Have you ever found yourself not enjoying the moment and thinking about the past, the future, or whatever? Last week, I was talking with someone, and we were talking about the holidays. I'm recording this the first week of December, so it was around Thanksgiving. We were talking about Thanksgiving, and she was super bummed that she had to work on Friday and that she was going to work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or something crazy like that. She works on retail, and she was super bummed that she hadn't enjoyed Thanksgiving because she knew the next day she was going to work 12 hours. And that is such pain for her. And that is such bad news if that happens to you, because you're not enjoying the moment. On the other hand, I went to pick up my dog on Thanksgiving Day. We picked him up really early in the morning. And this young woman working there, she was super happy. And she told me, I'm so excited that I'm going to have a few hours to be with my family today. I'm working until, I think, noon, and then in the afternoon she was going to another job. And she was excited that she had a few hours to hang out with her family. So I have these two stories about two different individuals with very different perspectives about enjoying the moment. One of them was really excited and was looking forward to it. And she was living in the moment. She was enjoying her work with the puppies, and she was excited about lunch and having some time with her family. And I'm pretty sure she enjoyed the conversations. And then she went to her second job, and I'm pretty sure she enjoyed it because that was her attitude. She was happy to be there and to enjoy whatever she had. On the other hand, this other individual who was working 12 hours, and I know that sucks. It's tough working 12 hours and being on your feet for such a long time, but she had a full day for herself to be with her family, and she didn't enjoy it because she was thinking about the next day. She had a rough day on Thanksgiving, thinking that the next day was going to be rough. And then she had a rough day. So she suffered for 2 days in a row. She could only have suffered for one day. Like, you have a long shift today, and that's it. You can see the difference here, and you can notice how one thing is better than the other, how one person enjoyed whatever she was getting, while the other one suffered without needing to. The thing about not living in the moment is that you are either worrying about the past, what you said, what you did, and guess what? You can't change it. You can't change what you're doing right now. You can do something about it right now, but you can't change the past. We can't go back and change the past. if we could, probably we would have a beautiful history. We wouldn't have as many wars. We wouldn't have all these ugly things happening, right? But we can't change it. So let's leave the past in the past. Let's learn from the past. The other thing about not living in the moment is that you're either in the past or you are in the future. So you are worrying. So in my 2 examples, one of them was worrying about the next day, about being on her feet all day long, about having 12 hours nonstop of work, of probably lots of crowds, a lot of work, maybe more than usual because it was Black Friday. So they were probably expecting huge crowds and a lot of movement, and they were expecting more people to come and shop, and I don't know. So instead of enjoying Thanksgiving lunch or dinner and being with her family and enjoying and laughing, she was worrying about what was going to happen next day. Probably it was not even as bad. Once you're in the moment, maybe it was not that bad. Maybe nobody showed up. Well, probably someone did, but you get my point. You don't know what's going to happen until it happens. We usually make these horrible stories on our minds about the future, and we plan for the worst. We're always thinking the worst is going to happen. Growing up, I'm pretty sure my mom made the worst stories on her mind every time that I didn't answer my phone because I have never answered my phone. As a good teenager, I wouldn't answer the phone. And by the way, they gave me a cell phone so they would know where I was. And still, there were times I wouldn't answer the phone because I was busy. We are worried and we make these horrible stories. And you might be asking yourself, okay, so how do I actually live in the moment? What if I'm in this Thanksgiving dinner, enjoying the moment, and how can I enjoy and stay in the present moment? And one of the things that I usually do to stay in the moment is to push away those thoughts. But usually when you just push them away, they won't go away. They will come back and they will be louder because our brain is telling us about the dangers. Probably for this lady, what her brain was telling her is there is this lion that is going to come tomorrow and eat you alive. And her brain didn't know that it was not a lion, it was work, and she was going to get paid for it. And maybe she got sore feet, but that was the worst case scenario. Nothing bad was going to happen. But for her brain, it was a huge risk out there that she needed to be aware of. So when these huge risks that are out there and we're trying to protect ourselves, because our brains don't know that it's just work. It's not like we are going to a very unsafe place. And I get it. Some people do live in very dangerous places and worry about it. There are people that live in war zones. And yes, they are alert all the time. But specifically for this woman, she was not living in a war zone. She was just going to work at Dillard's or whatever, wherever her work was. And probably she only got sore feet. So nothing happens. She had a terrible Thanksgiving. So what if she would have stayed and she would have told her brain, thank you for letting me know. Now I'm going to enjoy this moment. I have already acknowledged that this is going to happen. And now I'm going to enjoy this moment. I am going to worry about these tomorrow. And something happened to me a while ago. I was traveling and I was flying back on a Sunday. I had to be at work on Monday and my flight got canceled. As I got notification that my flight was canceled and I was getting the flights for the next flight and figuring out when I was flying back, I was super worried and I was not enjoying. We were at a museum and I was not enjoying at all the museum. And what I decided to do was just figuring out what I could do to give peace to my brain. So that is another thing that you can do. What can you do right now to give peace to your brain about the future? For me, it was just figuring out what I had to do at that moment. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take 15 minutes away from my experience from this museum. I'm going to stop right here, get my flight, notify my boss that I am going to be late, and then I am going to enjoy the museum. If I can't get rid of those thoughts, then what can you do to put those thoughts at peace and then enjoy the moment? So in the case of this woman, she could have said, okay, I need to have a very good night rest. So I am going to put an alarm at 8 p.m. That's when I'm going to say goodnight to everybody and I'm heading to bed at that time. So I am in bed by 9 p.m. and I can have a fantastic night of sleep. And another thing that she could have done is make sure that whatever she needed to have a fantastic night of sleep was happening. So if you know that you don't sleep very well when you drink a lot, maybe I'm just going to have 2 drinks and that's it. So those things, when our brains tell us that something is going to happen and we set them at peace, then we can enjoy the moment. Then we can live in the present knowing that we already took care of what was going to happen in the future. I hope this helps you not just through Thanksgiving, which probably this is going to be published in January, so Thanksgiving is going to be in a very long time. But when we worry about the future, now you know what you can do to set your brain at peace and enjoy the moment, enjoy the present, and get the best out of it. Hey, my friend, I would like to ask you for a huge favor. I would love if you can review this podcast, because when you do, you help others like you find me and find the resources that they're looking for. So, I would really appreciate if you do that. Thank you, and talk to you next week.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.